we have Dylan Balsamo to talk some Mets. Dylan, how are you doing?
What's going on, guys? Good to see you. I love one-on-one nightly. It's one of my favorite things we do here at WFUV. So I'm glad to hop on even just for a segment.
It's great to have you. And, we were talking about the Yankees, about how they have not been doing well, but the Mets they've stayed afloat and they are a first place team. They're in first place in the National League East still, even with all the injuries. And I think now with them getting some of their hitters back, Pete Alonso's been back and he's been hitting well. I really think that the Mets, they've been doing a good job. And right now they're beating up on the Baltimore Orioles 8-1. They face Matt Harvey again, and they've really just taken over in that game, rebounded from last night's kind of disaster. And, it's been interesting to see how the Mets have been able to stay afloat, but somehow, some way, even with all the injuries, even with, Billy McKinney having to play in the outfield, they've managed to get the job done.
Absolutely. And, in terms of last night, even the best teams lose 60 games. So that's just bound to happen along the way, even if one of them is against the Baltimore Orioles. But anyways, you talk about being a first place team in spite of a multitude of injuries, and that's a combination of two things. For one thing, the National League East, in terms of not the Mets, has been incredibly disappointing this year in what I suspected was going to be the best division in baseball. Obviously, the National League West has proven me wrong in that respect. But, you look at a team like the Braves, were obviously the favorite to win the division. I personally had the Phillies as maybe bettering the Mets come the season's end, and perhaps that might still be true. But even the Marlins have a good squad. The Nationals have a decent squad. So the division was supposed to be good, but it's not. But the other thing that has benefited the Mets is there clearly is some kind of spirit on this team that is undescribable, that is not tangible in any kind of statistic. Every one of these guys has said, Michael Conforto with the most recent one just a couple days ago, saying this is the most special team he's ever been a part of. There's something there. There's a spirit, there's a feeling there. And perhaps that comes from an incredible amount of injuries and feeling a closeness as a team. Maybe the momentum and resiliency of someone like Kevin Pillar coming back after maybe a week and a half on the IL after literally breaking his nose. All of these different things clearly come in to benefit the Mets. So that has very much played well in their hand this year.
That's so interesting because you talked about there's no tangible aspect, and there really isn't. Like, as I was doing research for the show, I was looking at the lineup. Is there one guy who's really carrying the load? And there just isn't. Like, Dom Smith is 260 average. I think that's best for the team. Steve Cohen had a tweet the other day. I think it's such a perfect way to emphasize the team. It's like, you just got to love this team. They continue to find a way to get it done. There's no one tangible thing that they're really, dominating right now. It's just a team. You talked about Conforto saying that. He was on a World Series team. For him to say, like, this is the most special it's been is really something. The thing I want to ask you is about the rotation, because right now they do have the best three-headed kind of monster in baseball. DeGrom, obviously, we could do a whole show on his dominance. Marcus Stroman, we knew he'd kind of be solid. And Taijuan Walker's kind of came out of nowhere, 2.17 ERA, really a great free agent signing. Do you think that they can kind of keep this steady in the rotation? I know David Peterson struggled yesterday. I think he will stay in the rotation. It's kind of shaky there. But do you think the rotation can continue to be such a strength for this team?
Well, it's an interesting question, Ryan, because you look at the three-headed monster that it is right now, DeGrom and Stroman and Taijuan Walker, surprisingly. I have as much faith in Jacob DeGrom as I do in any religious figure that has ever been known on this planet. Marcus Stroman has been stellar, and it's very clear that the team and the fan base is behind him all the way. So I have as much faith in him as I do anybody as well. Taijuan Walker, I'm not incredibly sure about, and it doesn't feel completely there to me yet. And maybe he'll prove me wrong. I would love for him to prove me wrong. But to that point, not yet. But then you look at the rest of this team, what Mets fans have been saying the entire season is, wow, look at how good this pitching has been in even the bullpen. Plus, Noah Syndergaard's not back yet. Cookie Carrasco has not played an inning for the Mets yet. I don't know if Noah Syndergaard's coming back this year. It just might not happen. I don't know if Carrasco's going to be coming back this year. That's a big setback from just today.
Yeah.
But, those three, as long as they can each have their points of staying consistent throughout the season, DeGrom is, if he keeps up like this, I don't even know. He'll have to pitch all 9 innings of the All-Star game for the National League if he keeps up like this, quite frankly. Stroman will continue to have ups and downs as he always does. But, there's guys like David Peterson who can come in and be that temporary third guy if you need him to. This is a team that has pitched a lot of bullpen games, as we've started to call them, with an opener and just having long rotation guys. But this is a team that has the what's the word? Not levity. That's not the word. The depth. That's not even close to levity. But I thought of it eventually. This is a team that has the depth in the bullpen as well to support a starting staff, even when they're not at their best. So I have full faith in the Mets pitching staff to sustain them to be at playoff caliber if the offense allows them to be for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, and I think the most interesting thing about the Mets, or the most fascinating thing, is that, Francisco Lindor is hitting around 215, and they're still managing to be a first-place team. Like, you have your best hitter not hitting, and they're still managing to get the job done. And the other important thing is that they're getting their pieces back. Conforto is going to come back. McNeil's going to come back. JD Davis is going to come back. So the Mets, if they can just survive this crisis, I really think they could be in a good position. But we were talking about the pitching staff, and, you have the three-headed monster. But I think, with the two guys, Peterson and Lucchesi not really being sure things, I have to ask you, Dylan, could perhaps, a trade at the deadline be in the works?
Brian, that's a good question, and it's something I've given some thought to. And that's the really unfortunate thing of having this many injuries, because a fully healthy Mets roster, there's easily a trade you could make. But as of right now, it might actually be too early. For any team, it's too early. It's too early for the Mets to be thinking about that, because they do not know what pieces they're going to have come the end of July, the beginning of August. As much as we like to talk about how Conforto's on his way back, JD Davis is on his way back, and don't really know about Jeff McNeil or Brandon Nimmo for that sake. We, at the end of the day, we don't know yet. And, like we talked about, the pieces that were supposed to be the center of things for the Mets have really not been. That goes to show that their success is as much confusing as it is magical, it seems to me. Lindor has struggled, and, he's been on a tear the last week or so, but that doesn't make up for a whole month and a half where he just wasn't hitting. Pete Alonso has a home run and 3 RBIs at home this year. He's hitting 0.91, I think, is his average at home this year. Dom Smith went weeks without hitting a home run. There are pieces there that are supposed to be producing that aren't there yet. So, you look at the Mets, and if there's anything that could be traded, it's one of these guys who has come in and produced out of nowhere, whether that be, McKinney, who has come in recently and just blown the roof off the place. Has become
got a home run tonight
immediately. Khalil Lee is a great player who is obviously not on the major league roster right now, but I think is excellent trade bait if you need another arm on the staff. But I also think there are some guys in that bullpen who could make the transition to the starting rotation if you need to come down the stretch. So, to be honest with you, this is a very long way of saying I don't know.
Well, we'll see what the Mets do going forward. The Mets are now up 10-1 on the Orioles. Kevin Pillar and Mason Williams, both home runs in the top of the 8th inning. Kevin Pillar's had some night. The Mets are in first place in the National League East, 29-24. And, they're going to get their big guns back, and we'll see. Dylan, thank you so much for coming on with us.